Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to WatchWant, and thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Vacheron Constantin Royal Eagle Chronograph. From lug to lug, this one spans 55 millimeters. It is 37 millimeters wide, not counting the extremities of the pusher and the crown, and a reasonable 13 millimeters thick. I say reasonable because this is a complicated stainless steel watch, automatic winding, with a chronograph and a grand date, a double-digit date at 12 o'clock. This is a lot of content in a reference that draws on Vacheron Constantin's aesthetic heritage. Now, sorry, Franck Muller, but Vacheron Constantin owns the tonneau case, and they have since 1912. When they were one of the first adopters of the wristwatch format in the early 20th century, they were among the pioneers in the type. Before World War I, when the pocket watch was still dominant, Vacheron innovated to make the tonneau case something of a signature of its wristwatch line. Oblong, it sort of splits the difference between a round watch and a rectangular watch, and very distinctive. It was revived during the early 2000s in the Vacheron Royal Eagle line, which survives to the present day catalog as the Malta line in the Vacheron parlance. But the bottom line is, they got it right out of the gate. In 2002, with the Royal Eagle Chronograph, Vacheron created a sporty, more dynamic, younger man's Vacheron Constantin, to bring in those who might have seen Rolex or Omega or Breitling as their gateway to luxury watches, were part of the new generation of high horology connoisseurs and wanted to move up to something a bit more deluxe. And that makes the Royal Eagle something of a counterpart to the Overseas in the Vacheron catalog, as a more dynamic, more sporting reference for a new generation of watch collector. Now, you can see on my wrist, the fit of this watch is very comfortable. I have to say, with a span of over 2 inches, 55 millimeters from lug to lug, I expected this one to overwhelm my wrist. Frankly, my wrist is 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, and knowing that something really huge, like a Rolex Yachtmaster 2, is 53 millimeters from lug to lug, I expected 55 to just cross the line, but it doesn't. And not only does it not cross the line, but you can see in this profile shot, it doesn't actually overhang my wrist at the extremities, and the bracelet even flares out a little bit. So you could wear this watch on a smaller wrist, perhaps even down to 6 inches, maybe 5 3/4 in circumference. So there's versatility built into the fit of the watch as well as the style of the watch. Now, the bracelet's an important part of the fit of a watch, and I want to focus on this. It is a 3-link design. I know it looks like it could be a 4-link, but that's just a clever channel down the center of the center link. The watch is beautifully finished. From an ergonomics standard, it doesn't pull hair, it doesn't pinch skin, so victory there. Feels very supple, very silky against the skin, but it's also very well built in the sense that there's not a lot of play in it. The tolerances are tight, the assembly is exemplary, and cosmetically the finish is impeccable. It's what you would expect of a Geneva high horology house. Now you can see the flanks of the lugs are polished. There's a little bit of a step from the flank of the lug to the top of the link, I should say. And then the tops of the links are brushed, so you don't get that big bling look. It's not a blinding flash of polished metal. The polished segments are subtle. They're used to accent. They're not the dominant finish. So there's a subtlety there, but there's also a contrast, so it succeeds on both counts. Now I want to focus on the transition to the case, because the case features gorgeous flared lugs that are just slightly evocative, subtly evocative of the Maltese cross. You could see the marquee at 12 o'clock on the dial, but that Maltese cross emblem of Vacheron Constantin. It's not as overt as it is on the Overseas, where it's a recurring motif, but it's there if you look for it. And there's a lot of subtlety to this case. You can see the fluting of the lugs themselves where they flare out corresponds to the step of the bezel, and it's echoed in the step of the chronograph pushers. You can see there's a lot of stylistic coherence here. The watch really does look like it was designed with a single aesthetic vision, not by a committee, and that kind of coherence is the hallmark of truly good art, and it's present in this Vacheron Constantin Royal Eagle Chronograph. Moving to the dial, you can see a sportier aesthetic than you would see on a traditional Vacheron Constantin. You don't see Roman numerals, and you don't see stick or baton indices. You see stylized Arabic numerals all the way around, with the exception of the illumination at 12, 3, 6, and 9. So in the spirit of a sports watch, you do have luminescence, so you can read this watch at night. Again, a pure dress reference would not have that. You also have outstanding legibility, and there's good contrast. The almost anthracite oxidized chronograph, seconds hand at center, and all of the subdial hands stand out from the silvered guilloche dial. Now the vast majority of the dial is a sort of frosted texture. It's frosted, it's grained, it's got an interesting texture to it without being too formal. There isn't a regular guilloche pattern here, and I like the use of texture without the use of a regular guilloche because it makes the watch look just a little bit more contemporary, less like a vintage piece. And again, because the contrast between the subdials and the hands, as well as the chronograph center hand, is so good, it's a practical watch that can be used as a chronograph with no reservations. It's not a chronograph for entertainment, it's a chronograph that you can actually read quickly and easily. Now the chronograph itself is based on the Frédéric Piguet 1186 automatic winding integrated chronograph movement. Vacheron Constantin calls this the caliber 1137, but it's an outstanding reference, and I'm going to turn the watch over so you can see the case back. Because I often get questions about watches with solid case backs, I'm going to show you this. It's just engraved with the name Royal Eagle as well as the Vacheron Constantin corporate marquee. Back to the movement. The movement itself was developed by Frédéric Piguet for Blancpain during the 1980s, and it's regarded as one of the masterpieces of modern horology. Thin, fine, and yes, if you were to pop the case back, it is finished to Vacheron Constantin's superlative in-house standards. It has the tactile pleasure of operating a column wheel movement. The start and the stop is operated by the traditional high horology mechanism, the column wheel. If you want to know what a column wheel looks like, it's basically just a wheel with little castle turrets sticking up, and it's indexed by levers that are alternately popped in and displaced as you start, stop, and reset the movement. And because the column wheel itself requires tight tolerances to operate, when you actuate the pushers, you get a robust feel, you get an audible click, you get a nice rifle bolt action when you depress them, and that's satisfying and it's rewarding to connoisseurs of high horology. Vacheron gets that with the Frédéric Piguet movement. What they also get is the vertical clutch of the Piguet movement. Now, traditional chronographs with a horizontal clutch are subject to stop-start stagger. That is to say, the hand will jump forward about a second when you start it. It'll stagger either forward or backwards when you stop it. And sometimes those horizontal clutch watches do not reset all the way to the index at 12. You don't have that problem with a vertical clutch, but the vertical clutch gives you one other advantage, which is that because there isn't a continuous meshing of gears of the horizontal clutch, the vertical clutch lets you run the central seconds hand continuously with no hazard to the movement. And that's one of the advantages here. If you like a continuous center seconds hand on your watch, you can just run the chronograph continuously as long as you're keeping it on your wrist for the automatic winding system to keep topping it off. So you have that second option for reading constant seconds with a vertical clutch system. Now this Vacheron Constantin is a 100% complete set. 100% complete, and it's a very deluxe set. This Royal Eagle chronograph includes the original polishing cloth and a very rich presentation box, leather bound and felt lined. It's almost a suede felt, very, very supple. It's everything you would expect of a manufacturer of this stature. And again, you're getting a lot of the best of both worlds. You're getting the tradition of Vacheron Constantin, the finishing standards of Vacheron Constantin, and the high horology movement from Frédéric Piguet, but you're getting it in a more dynamic, younger man's watch, a look that's more versatile, that's just at home in informal situations as it is in a suit and tie. If all of the above sounds good to you, I encourage you to check out this Vacheron Constantin Royal Eagle chronograph in stainless steel with full boxes, papers, manuals, and accessories on our website, Watch You Want.